from Detroit, Michigan. This is the Honestly Sis podcast mini edition.
Drew Prince Music.
Hello, beautiful people. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Wherever this podcast may find you, I hope that it finds you in great spirits. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, welcome. My name is Honest Am. I am the creator of the Honestly Sis newsletter. And this episode is actually going to be a little bit of a different episode. It's not going to be as long. I am going to do a quick newsletter, but it's not actually really a newsletter. It's more so a poem that I wrote kind of in the midst of everything that was going on with Honestly Sis and just trying to catch my bearings. And I thought that as I was reading through it, I thought that it was actually a really perfect follow-up episode because I had every intention on taking a summer break and turning my attention to doing reviews. And after I did that podcast, if I'm being honest, something just didn't feel right in my spirit. Something told me that taking a pause and trying to pivot my attention for Honestly Sis just was not the thing to do. Right after that, I ended up having so many videos and just conversations coming about like consistency and sticking with something. And I was listening to a podcast from a lady named Les, and I was just really inspired because she had, I think it was called Brown Girl Wellness, now it's called She's So Lucky. But just listening to her and learning that she was able to not only turn her podcast into her sole source of revenue, but now it is like competing with major platforms and all of these things. And she was able to do that without, any prior funding or being connected to any big organizations. Like she really just did it by being consistent, by putting in that time and effort. And I just felt like it was this bright light, like this beam, like the universe and my guides and everybody was just like, you need to do this. So as I was, realizing, okay, I don't want to stop this, I realized that I do need to kind of rebrand a little bit and shift how I am approaching Honestly Sis. I have this book called Conversations with God, and it really kind of came up as I was doing the research for this episode. And one thing that really, like the first thing that I ever read in this book that really stuck with me and like buried its way down in my heart and soul was this idea of when scientists do an experiment and it fails or it wasn't successful, the first thing that they do is they assume that everything they thought they knew was right is wrong. And so I was applying that to Honestly Sis and how I have been going about Honestly Sis. I've been consistent. I was showing up, I was putting out the newsletters, but I was also doing it in this very isolated way. Like I didn't want people to share the newsletters because I was scared because I was sharing such sensitive information. And that was the first thing that taught me that intentions was real, because as I was sharing this information and people were reading it and we grew a little bit, it eventually hit a standstill. And I realized that I didn't just want people to just read my work and go about their day, that I wanted to have this relationship with my readers. And so that is why I rebuilt, I did this whole purpose of doing Honestly Sis, the podcast, was because I wanted to reach a wider audience. I wanted to change the intention of Honestly Sis and not just make it this sacred space between inboxes, but really make it this sacred community and, attract other like-minded souls. But as I was gearing up to do the Honestly Sis podcast, it was right around the time that I was finishing up with my book. And I just knew last year I was going to be done with my book. I was going to get signed. And, honestly, this Honestly Sis podcast was just going to be another part of it. And none of that happened. And I ended up getting a developmental edit. And, although the feedback wasn't totally negative, it was very disheartening. And after working on something for 10 years and for it to still not be where I thought it took the wind out of my sails. I just have to be honest. And on top of that, with the book not being in a position to where I can sell it and start querying to authors, on top of me putting so much effort into my YouTube page and it going absolutely nowhere, to me putting writing to me the best work that I've done in a very long time for Honestly Sis, and getting no feedback. It just felt like I was in this constant loop of rejection. And starting the podcast was just why am I about to set myself up for another failure? It's am I good for punishment? But it's just been something on my spirit that has just been no, try again. It's not going to be like it was before. And so that's why y'all keep seeing this start and stop, because it's I believe in it, but I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. And lately, it's just been something on me, especially that now that I've been working on these episodes again, I just realized there's something about this, I'm learning. So to give you just a little bit of idea on my process, I read the newsletter for the week, or if I'm going to do a newsletter, I'll read the newsletter before the week. If I'm doing a channeling, I'll just come on here and channel it. Angel number 111 on the clock as I say that. And so this week I was reading the newsletter because it's a newsletter episode, and I realized it was this theme of doubt coming about. And something just told me to just look up how scientists look at doubt. Very random, but because I'm just being intuitive and I'm listening and I'm moving, I looked it up, and I got all of this information, so much information that we're going to get into. I have to hurry up because I have an appointment at 1:30, and I really want to, finish this episode before that. And that's another thing, me wanting to stay on a timetable and make sure I record today. It's different. It's a different energy. But anyways, so something told me to look up how scientists look at doubt. And I realized that for scientists, doubt is not a bad thing. It's actually essential for the scientific process. Matter of fact, one of the quotes is, science views doubt as a fundamental and positive force. It breeds honest skepticism. It drives scientists to question, to investigate things, to refine their understanding of the world. So doubt is essential in scientists. And yet I was looking at my life and being I'm doubting it. I'm doubting my path. I'm doing something wrong. And if I'm doubting my path, how can I get on this podcast and say, I'm going to teach you guys how I healed myself and come up here as some expert? And I realized that was really what was holding me back for really stepping into this role as a healer, as a teacher, because I felt like I don't have it together and I haven't manifested, this big reality. I'm still in corporate America. I'm still grinding it out after 7 years. I'm still on this journey. And I think about some of the healers that I follow and that I love, and I see how much they have grown. And I'm just well, maybe I can't do this, maybe it's not for me. But I say all that to say that I had a trip to New York, and it made me confront the fact that I did have a problem with being seen as different. And if I have a problem with being seen as different, that would subconsciously affect how my work is being put out in the world. And that will also be the blockage to the growth and all of those things. And so I'm accepting that I really genuinely want to be seen, and I want to be seen for my full self. And in order to be seen for my full self, I have to bring my full self here. And I have been trying to make Honestly Sis like every other podcast I ever listened to. I'm a student at heart, and so I'm success leaves clues. And so what I have seen is that, okay, you do weekly episodes, and the podcast have to be the exact same thing. And so if I'm doing newsletters, then it's gonna be newsletters one week, and maybe I can do the channeling. Before I was always trying to separate things, and now I'm going to just be who I am. And who I am literally a Gemini Mercury. I love information. I love learning new things. I literally can learn from watching a cartoon. I can have this big, emotional awakening. Shout out to Harley Quinn. If you're not watching it on HBO Max, what are you doing? But I also can, nerd out and go on this Google search and do all of these facts and learn all these things about how science look at doubt and how doubt is actually essential for the process. I also can watch an episode of Sex and the City and come back and tell you guys about how it has changed me or how it has made me, redefine the way that I look at life and I look at myself out in the world. And instead of trying to make Honestly Sis only the newsletter and I'm trying to make it only the channeling and trying to, do my Dear Showrunner stuff over there, I'm only one person, and until I get the funds to be able to review a whole series, I'm just gonna have to do everything here. And so you're gonna start seeing different type of episodes. I'm going to talk about the Gilded Age. I could like repurpose the Harlem series breakdown that I did over on Honestly Sis channel. But moving forward, I'm just gonna do it here. I don't do typical reviews, and so it should work. I will make sure that I really get into labeling these, so just in case you listen to it and you're not feeling it, you can go on about your day. I'm not gonna feel any type of way. I'm also gonna start doing mini book review episodes. I do feel like as I was getting ready to come record this podcast, something was really calling me to pick up my For Conversation with God's book, and then I remembered, oh yeah, this is the first time I learned about if something isn't going right or if you're not getting the results that you want, then assume everything that you thought before was right was wrong. And so maybe, me trying to be super strict or me trying to separate things or me trying to only appear one type of way, maybe that's why I'm not connecting to the audience that I want, because I'm still hiding bits and pieces of myself. And so Honestly Sis has always been meant to be a digital archive of my life, of my feelings, of my spiritual journey, of my creative journey. And it's in this podcast is going to just be the exact same thing. It's just going to be, I'm just going to do it in a totally different way. And so I hope that you will just come along on this journey. I know that word of mouth is the best advertisement that it is. And so when you feel called to and when you really want to push these episodes out, please share it to a friend. I really want it to grow. If I say something in this podcast and you want to reach out to me. You can respond to you can respond to the emails and it'll come straight to me and I'll read it and I'll respond to you. I am going to start doing Q&A where we'll do some mailbag episodes. I just really, really want to make this a community. I am tired of feeling lonely and feeling like this black sheep. And I just really want to be that beacon of light that I wish to see in the world. I started this podcast because I read this book called, I think it was Honey Love. It was this book, a lesbian love story. And in the story, her girlfriend was a radio host and she had this radio show called For Lonely Creatures, where she would share stories about creatures. And it was a way to do storytelling, but also she was, talking to truck drivers that was just out on the road by themselves and just letting them know that they're not alone. And that is the purpose of this Honestly Sis podcast, is to let people know who are on this healing journey, who are like me, or maybe not even like me, let them know that they're not alone. And so I am not going to waste your time anymore, and I'm going to go ahead and read this week's newsletter. And this week's newsletter is going to be called A Case for Reasonable Doubts. I hope you enjoy. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. It's all very exciting in the beginning. The start of a project is open with many promises. You plan everything, the road of possibilities is open to you. You're green, you jump on the road, you bump along, you make mistakes, you shout for joy. You surprise yourself. Your energy is strong, then you hit a snag and you see that the road is long. It won't be easy, it won't be quick. You check your matrices and you see the efforts don't match the results. Doubt creeps in. Your mind questions you. Fear tells you this was never really you. It gets harder to stick to your schedule, harder to sit down and write. It's maddening. The thing keeps eating away at you during the night. It tells you you're settling. It tells you who you could be. In the morning, you look at your project and wonder, why is it not done and why couldn't it be? Why is it so hard just to finish what you've already begun? The doubt has set in. The resistance has settled. But keep your head up. This place isn't foreign. This place is limbo, decorated with the footprints of the greats. It's a mental block. You know this. No self-help book can get you through this. You know the plan. The vision is clear. All you have to do is move. All you have to do is believe. All you have to do is never, ever give up on your dreams. Yeah. So I wrote that letter. That was one of the letters that I wrote in the midst of trying to figure out, honestly, so I was scrambling because I was trying to put so much attention into the social media aspect of it. So on my IG page, I've hid all that stuff. But before, I used to keep it up there because I wanted people to see this was how dedicated I made this, because that's how I was feeling. Like, I was feeling like I'm putting in all this work, but it's not growing. And I'm also in the same place. Like, I put in all this work and it's not growing. But instead of giving up, I am switching it around and doing things different. And so like I told you guys, I went and did some research about how science look at doubt. And I found this really interesting fact. Our brains only interpret everything in a certain frame of reference and prior knowledge. And so I always have this favorite saying that I says, your mind is nothing but Google on steroids, and just amplify that times 1,000. And so you only understand that this is a pen because somewhere in your brain knowledge, back when you were a kid, your mom held it up to you and told you it was a pen. But if you had no frame of that, you wouldn't call this a pen. You may call it a pencil, you may call it something else. And so it says that our vision of the world is therefore unreliable. We can only understand the world if we consider the possibility that we might be wrong about what we see. And I thought that was so deep, because it really goes back to that idea that you can't believe everything that you see. And so we have to lean into this invisible world, into this unseen. And that is where I come back into believing into Honestly Sis, because there is something within me. There's something that led me to this information. And I have to believe that it is all for a purpose. I have already cried dreams about, getting the 6-figure deal for Honestly Sis. We're signing my book. I have already seen the lines of people waiting for me to, sign and all those good things. But it hasn't happened yet. And sometimes that can make you feel crazy, and you can feel like you doubting it, or, wrestling with it means that you're not believing in it, or it can make you feel like maybe my doubt is the reason why it is not coming about. And I just want you to know that God is big enough for our doubt. I even went ahead and I'm also going to put all this information in the show notes. But I found this beautiful quote from this young lady named Elaine Eckenland, I believe. And it says, faith includes the truthful recognition of the loss, of the emptiness, and of the discomfort of the unknown. So you having faith is you also recognizing doubt and realizing that you don't know everything. And I do want you to understand that the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. And so God understands that because we are in this very human body, that there are going to be times when we're going to doubt the road. We're going to doubt where we're going. But that doesn't mean that you just stop going, right? You have to work through that doubt. And that is what this episode is about. And that is why I'm here. And that's why I'm saying, okay, you know what? It didn't work the last time. Then let's try something different. Let's, instead of making it one thing, let's make it a mixed bag, right? Another thing, it says, the scientific approach requires changing our understanding of the natural world whenever new evidence emerges, either from experimentation or observation, right? And so I always tell you that God doesn't want you to have blind faith. He wants you to have a knowing faith, which means that he wants you to have a relationship with him. You have to know him. It's just like a relationship with a lover. Sometimes he's going to fall short and sometimes you're going to fall short. But I do believe as you guys keep working together, as you keep working on the path of your dreams, you will see evidence that it is real, and that there is this invisible force pushing us along, and that evidence will turn your doubt or turn your, the unknown into a little bit of a known. So you can trust your feelings, but you may not be able to trust what you see. And then the last thing that I did want to lead you guys with is indeed the science is not a linear path. A lot of people like to think that science is just this path of one discovery, one success after another. But really science is this evolution of constantly reevaluating your hypothesis. Failures are simply a part of the scientific process. And that's why I really thought that it was important to talk about the scientific process, because the scientific process is about discovery. It's not about certainty. It's not about getting to this certain conclusion. And I believe that we should take that scientific approach to life, because that is what life is about. Life is not about getting to your end goal of just having, a wife, the kids. Because please ask our parents, they have gotten there and they still had this yearning. They still had this need to fill the hole. And so I just ask that you guys allow me to take this scientific approach to life and allow me to just discover what this podcast is going to be. The beautiful thing of not having a great big audience is that I don't have to worry about molding to all of these different results, but I can just have fun and play, and you guys can get to know the full version of me and not just these little slitherings, okay? But if you do find yourself in this moment of doubt, I hope that this episode lets you know that you're not alone, that I'm having it even in the midst of me sitting up here. But I'm just going to keep working through it, and I'm just going to keep working until I get myself on the other side of it. And I hope that you would do the same thing as well. There was another beautiful quote about the scientific process that I can't find it right now, and I'm running out of time. So I just hope that this episode let you know that, even the people that you see, quote unquote, living their dreams, it doesn't mean that they're not having moment of doubts. It's not saying that they don't wrestle with their path or if they're doing the right thing. They just have the courage to keep going anyway. And I hope and I pray that you would do the same thing as well, okay? All right, y'all, that is all I have for you. Until we meet again, dream those dreams. Never let the internet rush you, and never, ever let someone tell you what you cannot do. Guys, if you love this episode, like I tell you always, go ahead and share it to your favorite social media timeline. You never know who may come across it. Please like, comment, or review the podcast. It actually helps people, it boosts us up in the ratings. And the best way to support me is to check out the Honestly Sis YouTube channel, or even going ahead and booking a reading at www.honestlysis.com. Definitely make sure you sign up for our newsletter mailing list, because we're going to start going live. I'm going to start doing out some of these TV reviews and channeling live. You do not want to miss out, okay? All right, y'all, I love you so, so much. Thank you for helping my dream come true. Now get your ass out there and work on your own. All right, see you at the top, friends.